So hello everybody and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking to Jane Sleight-Leach, and I'm really excited, and not only excited but passionate about the subject that she's going to be talking about today, and that is domestic violence. So Jane, welcome and hello.
Hello, how are you?
So Jane, you're all the way over there in Australia, but it feels like, we're just sat here having a chat.
Having a chat, I know, isn't it awesome?
So, Jane, you've had very personal experiences of domestic violence, or as you call it, DV. And it would be really great to hear a little bit about your story, about how you've used EFT and matrix reimprinting to help you through that experience. And I know, we've just been talking about how you actually experienced PTSD. So maybe we could start there. How was PTSD showing up for you?
When you have several or ongoing experiences with trauma and lots and lots of triggers constantly in your life, you develop what's commonly known as complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Whether that's officially diagnosed or not, you having constant triggers to seemingly normal everyday events, I guess, because you're living in a relationship, probably in a household, and within a family, perhaps, that you're having multiple experiences, traumatic experiences, whether that be physical, emotional, mental, financial, spiritual, whatever it might be. So there can be many triggers and layer upon layer of triggers that build up over, if your relationship goes on for several years, it goes quite deep. And, you can have triggers around just, for instance, I'll give an example of something that was a trigger for me, was standing in my kitchen and putting the kettle on, for instance. I talk about this experience quite a lot because it's quite an innocuous kind of thing that everybody does. But after I left the relationship, I moved into a new house, had a new kitchen, had a new kettle, totally new, different environment. And but I was finding that whenever I went into the kitchen and, you do the actions of you put the water in the kettle, you put the kettle on, you flip the button, I was having almost like a panic attack, and this feeling would come over me, and it was like, the full flight and fright response would come on, and I'd get the adrenaline surge, and I'd start to get really jittery, and that feeling in the stomach, and I couldn't work it out for such a long time. It was just awful. And I started to analyze it, because that's kind of what I do. That's the way my mind tends to work. I kind of was like, all right. And this is before I did, any of the work with Matrix. I just was like looking at myself and what the hell's going on. I worked out and worked it back to an event that happened a few years earlier. And I had been in my kitchen making myself a cup of tea when my former husband came in, and this whole event kind of took place. And so it was like an unconscious trigger for me, obviously, the muscle memory of putting on the kettle, and it always felt like it was coming from behind, which did when it happened. And I felt this sense of being exposed and fearful, and it just kept playing over and over. It wasn't every single time I put the kettle on, but a lot of the times and I had to actually retrain myself when I actually realized what was going on, just how powerful that memory was, that it was affecting me physically the same way years later. I literally had to retrain my brain. Every time I went to put the kettle on, I would think of something positive, force myself to think of something positive to stop that response happening. And that took a long time. With Matrix, obviously, we know that we can change that like that. But that's what was going on for me. And, and there were many experiences that I was constantly feeling like I wasn't in control a lot of the time. And obviously there were memories and reactions running subconsciously that I really couldn't work out. So that's how women tend to live when they've been in those kind of, you know, abusive relationships, just going about their everyday lives being constantly triggered. Yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah, it absolutely fascinates me how the subconscious actually picks on something and then tries to keep you safe from that. And the example that I'm thinking of is in Carl's first book, about the lady who had anaphylactic shock every time she smelt coffee. She couldn't absolutely go anywhere near coffee.
Well,
and
I have heard about this actually.
Yeah, and during a matrix session, it was like that they went back to the time when she had experienced DV, but she ended up going to a woman's refuge, and all the women used to sit round the table and drink coffee and share their experiences. So somehow her subconscious linked the coffee with the experience she had. So every time she smelt coffee in a restaurant or something, it would trigger that panic. And she would go into a massive panic attack.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Our minds and subconscious are just so powerful because, you know, literally whenever I was in that situation, I felt like it was like I wanted to run. Obviously, it was my own unconscious mind trying to warn me of danger, potential danger. Yeah. And, you know, making that rush of blood and the adrenaline come through and left me exhausted. You know, you're in a constant state of exhaustion because it's happening over and over again when you've got the complex post-traumatic stress as opposed to, you know, those big T traumas when it happens maybe just once. Yes. When you've got the constant re-triggering of things happening all the time, can be every day, you know. Yeah. It's depleting, completely exhausting.
Wow. So Jane, that's a little bit about your background. So let's talk about the healing side of it. How did you actually, you know, how did you address some of those situations to be able to sit here today and literally talk about it without really any massive emotion going on?
Well, I came across Matrix eventually, but there was a journey to finding Matrix. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I needed something. I did all the counselling. I did probably 18 months worth of psychological work. I did acupuncture. I did CBT. I did past life regression. You name it, I pretty much did it. And it was all kind of as I could afford it because I was very limited with, you know, the funds that I had available. I'd become a single parent, you know, it was tough. So I just kind of, I read a lot of books, learned NLP that way. But I was determined that I needed to kind of do something for this state that I was in. I couldn't live like that. I knew that there was some way to actually, you know, work through it. And I was, oh gosh, how did I come across Cal? Well, I'd actually been working with another organisation to become a facilitator. It wasn't in alignment in terms of my values and my level of integrity, because it was very much a money-making venture, more than, you know, the healing and doing the work with women side of things. It didn't start out that way, but that's the way it became. So I moved away from that. I left that, and in the interim, I knew that I needed to be teaching this to other people, or you know, working out a way to teach other people how to deal with their own trauma. So, look, as the universe does, a random meeting with Caroline.
Caroline Dawson.
Caroline Dawson, yeah, completely. She lives in Melbourne, I live in Brisbane, but she was up here on a weekend, and it was a mutual friend said, oh, I think you two are going to the same event, you might want to catch up. So we ended up in Brisbane at the convention centre having a chat, and that was it, because we're like from the same part of the world, we've had similar experiences, on a similar mission in life, and she said, oh, I've got this thing called Matrix that, you know, you might be interested in. So I ended up doing the courses, working on myself, and found that it was the most effective thing that I've used to date. So I was, blown away at the rapid response that you get. As we all know, it's amazing work. And it just kind of like hit me that, right, when you get that knowing comes in and you go, this is it. This is what I needed. Thank you, universe. Let's move. Let's go with it. Yeah. So I'm now a practitioner. A lot of people in my networks are, seeing the massive changes in me, not only in my emotional state, but my ability to actually get out there and promote it, the work, and myself, because I was very kind of in my shell, if you like, really not able to communicate effectively or be, as assertive as I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Very much shy, very much in the background, really not wanting to push myself out there, very fearful. And people have seen that difference in me now. I'm up on stage now. I'm out there. I'm all over the place. I've got no fear about talking to people, being around people, promoting this work, asking for what I need, importantly, in pushing this work forward. So now people are seeing the effectiveness of it in me as an example. People are starting to take notice. Yeah, because I've been involved in small business and working with women for a long time, but since Matrix came into my world, it's exploded.
Beautiful. Yeah. And just before we talk about the amazing work that you do with women who've experienced DV, one of the things that people who have experienced really big trauma fear is about going back into that memory, having to talk about it, to be re-triggered, to experience it all again. And as with typical talk therapy, you just talk over and over and over it again, and everything gets stirred up, and then you're left with this horrible feeling.
Well, you're left with that feeling of having been through the trauma is what you're left with. So could you just talk a little bit about how you felt Matrix is different to that, and your feelings after you've had a session? Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, first off, as we know, we don't need to talk about the experiences. We don't need to talk about the trauma, what happened. We don't need to rehash the story. That's one of the big things I put out there in my communications, if you like, with the website and online and all of that is, I know that you have this fear that you're going to have to talk about your stuff and, open up that suitcase and lay it all open. But let's just put that aside. We can leave that suitcase closed. We can put it in the corner. And all we need to talk about initially is how you feel about it. We don't need to go into what happened. So, we're not actually rehashing any of it and re-triggering. There's a little bit of apprehension from people that I find when we start the session, but we very quickly tap that down and it becomes a lot more comfortable.
Beautiful.
So, we don't need the story. We don't need it. We just need to work with what is the belief around it, what is the perception of the whole thing, the scenario, and how can we go in and change that to it being, a scenario where you're in control, you are empowered. What would you have ideally liked? How can we take that charge and take that charge, that really high trauma response out of it, bring in the resources that we need for that person in that particular time and place. It's very powerful because it puts control of the whole situation into the hands of the client.
Yeah, that's what I love about it so much.
Yeah, it's never happened before in any kind of domestic violence service that I've come across. It's always a sort of a very gentle kind of, oh, you poor thing, that's really, it's a terrible thing that's happened to you. let's talk about it, let's talk it through, we can share it here. Oh my God, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that at all. And I've got interest from some of the DV services in the area to start looking at using this with some of their clients. So
what I love about it most is that you can absolutely keep your clients safe throughout the whole of the process. So
totally, because they are safe. They are safe. They're sitting with you in this place, and we can go back and make that whole scenario safe. We can remove people, we can bring others in, we can bring in resources, we can do whatever it is they need to bring in that high sense of safety, which is the opposite to what they've been feeling.
Yeah.
So we always try to do the opposite of wherever they're at now. We bring in the opposite.
Beautiful.
Which is always safety.
Yeah. So your work now, Jane, is to bring women together in the community to have retreats and workshops for people to come together. Could you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing there?
Sure. Well, the Life 2 project, I've been working on that for about 6 years now, sort of developing the ideas of basically what I wished had been available when I was going through that situation when I left my marriage. It's now developed into, we've been running retreats for about 2 years. I've run four 3-day retreats and a few 1-day retreats. So I bring 6 ladies together and I do all of the fundraising to be able to heavily subsidise their places. They pay a little bit towards it because I think that's important too. But the majority of it is, fundraising provides the places for them. So it's fully catered, it's fully accommodated. We bring in practitioners to work one-on-one with women. We also do group work with EFT, so teaching EFT as a tool for people to take away with them, use it on themselves, on their kids, immediate family, friends, whatever they want to do. But it's really important that they have that resource to take away with them, because that's the empowerment side of it. They don't have to rely on a practitioner to actually be able to work on themselves, in the moment when they need it.
You've got a process that you call the 4 pillars. Could you explain a little bit about that?
The 4 pillars of the Life 2 project that we work with are heal, empower, educate, connect. So heal basically is the matrix work. Empower is the teaching of the process with EFT, so that they have that resource to take away with them. So that gives them a huge sense of empowerment. Educate, so we talk about, DV and trauma is not just an emotional or psychological experience, it's a whole body experience. So we teach all about what is the fight and flight response. How does that affect your brain? Your frontal cortex shutting down and your logical thought processes going completely out the window. We kind of reassure them that that's normal. And that's like, oh my God, really? Your memory might disappear, just normalizing all that stuff that goes on that freaks people out. So, when you lose that ability to be able to think, you feel very stupid. Yeah.
So then you label yourself as being stupid.
Absolutely. So we teach all about those responses and how the brain works, all the different parts of the brain and how they work when you go into that fight and flight, which part of your brain takes over. So your amygdala will take over, what that is and what does that do. It's basic, but it's really powerful to have that knowledge. So how does trauma affect your gut and your digestive system, your central nervous system, basically? So that's educate. We've got all kinds of books available, your book's available, Carl's books are available. We've got all the resources there. Richard Luke with his work, we've got that. So all of that knowledge and resources are there. And then the connect part is connected with the other women, because it's a very isolating experience. as many of us know. Connecting with, you know, the ability to actually talk with someone who gets it, and, you know, connecting on that level, and also connecting with yourself.
Yes.
So connecting into your spirit, your soul, who you are, getting back to stuff that you enjoy as a person, the stuff that, you know, that you want to do in the future, connecting with your future self, that type of thing. Because when you're going through this stuff, there's not really a sense of a tangible future for you, or a future that, you know, that might be possible other than living this stuff over and over again. That's what many people do. We had a lady, a beautiful lady, just recently on the last retreat, who had pretty much given up. Excuse me. She didn't see her life, the rest of her life, as being anything worth anything at all. You know, she couldn't face it. And I was the same. I remember thinking I could not actually face the rest of my life living as I was living. It just did not have any appeal for me whatsoever. And it was very much a downward spiral had I not had the kind of, like, you know, foresight and strength of spirit, I suppose, to be able to lift myself out of it. This lady's now, well, she's starting to look at creating her own new small business, and this is only 2 weeks out of it, you know, after the retreat. She's got a new lease of life after, and we only do 2 matrix sessions with each person, but the connection and the you know, everything that sits around it just gives people new hope, a new perspective, and, you know, a different idea of what's possible. It's amazing. Really powerful. Yeah, and I've got lots of stories like that. Lots of stories. Yeah.
Beautiful. And what are your new projects coming up? Because I know you're hoping to expand that 3 days into something a little bit longer for people.
Yeah. Well, I've developed it into a 3-month course, which will roll back to back over a 12-month period, and tentatively looking at getting some funding to roll that out within another bigger organisation. I won't say too much about that right now because it's sort of, but it's exciting. It will happen. I just don't know when. I don't want to put any kind of, you know, thing out there at the moment where it's like too much of an expectation, I guess. But things are happening. So it's a 3-month process of one-on-one work, 9 weeks of group work, so working with mindfulness, meditation, EFT groups, practicing that, and various other things as well. It's called the 9 Conscious Choices. So there's another program kind of linking in with it as well. So it's very much about focusing in on who you are. What are your choices? How do you make better choices and more informed choices? And learning that how you are living actually is a choice. to be really specific.
Jane, because that puts the power back into the people that you're working with, and also helping them to get their self-respect and self-worth back. Jane, if somebody was listening to this, I know that you and Caroline are putting together a training for people, matrix reimprinting practitioners.
Yeah.
In this, so could you talk a little bit about that for me, please?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I felt that there's many awesome practitioners out there already working and doing some great work. But I felt that it would be very beneficial to actually hone into the specific issues that people who've been through these types of abusive situations typically are, you know, carrying. So, you know, we Caroline and I have put our heads together and sort of, you know, started to work on that and put that together, so that it's easier for a practitioner to kind of, you know, work with someone more quickly, I guess, to kind of hone in on what's going on. What are the typical issues? What are the typical scenarios that are going on? What are the typical experiences and beliefs that sit, you know, in behind the behaviors that are going on? So, you know, just to kind of like smooth that path, I guess, to getting into those specific memories and experiences. You know, going back from a specific illness or physical condition and going, you know, tracking back to what would be a typical experience or belief that has created that physical condition, you know, to be in a domestic violence scenario. So what are you looking for, basically? It's for, at the moment, practitioners who are already fairly experienced and currently working in the field, just to add on to what they already offer. And, you know, once they've done this training, there's opportunities to work within Life 2 and work with our clients eventually, because I will get funding, I will get this moving. And
I believe you will too, Jane.
they have got, there's really no option for it to not work, because I'm just going to keep pushing until someone takes notice. So, you know, there will be paid work in this eventually, but we do need a network of practitioners that are already across the issue.
Yeah.
For us to keep getting the runs on the board and keep putting it in their faces, whether it be government or other organisations or the sector or whatever, whoever it might be, that we have got tangible results to show people, to say this is working. You know, it's working better than anything that you've got on offer at the moment. So, you know, that's just basically that's what we're doing.
That would be amazing. So, Jane, if somebody's listening to this and either wants to contact you because they've experienced DV, or they're a practitioner and want to know more about you know, the specific issues, courses, how would they contact you? Where would they find you?
Either through my website at www.life2project.com.au. You can message me through that. Facebook page is probably a lot more active because I'm not really great at WordPress. So yeah, Life 2 Project is the Facebook page. So I'm on there pretty much every day. Or just friend request me, Jane Sleight-Leach. You'll see me there, like holding a sign. That's the picture. Yeah, friend request me, because that's kind of like, I'm a bit of a social creature. I like Facebook. I'm on there all the time. You're most likely to get me actually. Send me a message and say hi, and, you know, let me know what you need or what I can do, or, you know, what you want to talk about. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I would do work privately, one-on-one with people. Absolutely, I do, and, you know, I love to do that. You know, it can be over the phone, whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, and I'm getting quite excited because I can see you and Caroline rolling this out, you know, all over the world, because, you know, we have matrix reimprinting practitioners all over the world, and to be able to bring
exactly.
Yeah.
To have this available worldwide is going to be so powerful. I think domestic violence is one of the biggest problems that we have facing our type of culture and our type of society. I mean, it's right across in other cultures as well, obviously. But, you know, the United States, Australia, the UK, you know, Ireland, the places that we know, Italy, yeah. And, you know, without language being a barrier, I mean, that's a big enough area, you know, before you know, yeah. So to have it available in all of those places through all of our networks is going to be so powerful. It's life-changing, as we know.
Beautiful.
The women that I've worked with, they literally, I mean, that's the reason it's called Life 2, because they literally get a second chance at living their life, yeah, through this work. So thanks, Carl. You didn't know what you were getting into, did you?
Yeah, it's getting into helping other people change other people's worlds. So
yeah.
Awesome. Jane, we could talk for hours, and I would love to interview you again when you've got, you know, your next part of your project set up. So we'll arrange a time to do that, and hopefully I'll get to see you in person in January or
Yes, in
February next year.
February. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Excellent.
and look, if we can arrange a retreat, if I get the the funding together to arrange it around that time, we'll definitely have you in, and that will be so powerful for our women coming into that one. Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Really special. Yeah.
Can't
Excellent.
wait. Jane, thank you ever so much, and you're just amazing.
Oh, thank you. So are you. We're all amazing. Aren't we brilliant? Aren't we really brilliant? I love this group of people, these amazing people that we have around us. It's like just feeds my soul. It really does.
Yeah.